Hi, I'm Bishop Daryl Hines, and I enjoy listening to Speak Music Radio.
What's up, Speak Music Radio? I am so ecstatic to be sitting here with my very own Bishop Daryl Hines today. I decided to interview him. He is the pastor of Christian Faith Fellowship Church. This is the best church on this side of heaven in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'm very, very excited today to be sitting here, getting ready to interview him. We're going to get right to business. Bishop, I first want to say to you, I am so very honored that you and Pastor Pam are my spiritual leaders.
Oh, Bridget, fine, baby. We honored to be your spiritual leaders too.
Since I've been here, you all have blessed me so spiritually. I've just the molding and the spiritual things that you say over the pulpit has really impacted my life so much. It's phenomenal. You're such a great leader, beyond measurement. Words can't even describe. And I really appreciate the honesty. You're like so down to earth. It makes everything just so easy because you're down to earth. You're very reachable. You're very humble, and I think that is so important in ministry in this day and time.
You know, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know, that's probably one of the greatest compliments that I get, is because the gospel is not to be, you're not to usurp authority, but you're to serve. You don't usurp authority with the gospel. You serve the gospel. And as a servant of the gospel, it is important to me to come across as a man of God, but as a servant of the people. And you can't serve arrogantly. You serve humbly.
And I so appreciate that so much. Like I said, you all have been so reachable. I remember a time Pastor Pam called me on the phone. I was going through some things, and she called me. She said, "Bridget, I was thinking about you and Ricky, and I just love you guys so much." And that just blew me away. Like, literally, I was like, "Pastor Pam, what?" You know. But that meant so much to me. You guys are great leaders. But beyond you being a pastor and serving in ministry, you are a musician, a songwriter, a singer, just phenomenal. You're like a one-stop shop guy.
That's what can I say? To God be the glory for the things that He has done. I can't take any credit. It's really God, Bridget.
So, if you would tell Speak Music Radio, before you started your record, some of the things that you've done in the music industry, whether was it writing, singing, who did you sing with, things like that.
Well, the thing about it is, when I was much younger, I used to do a lot of singing, a lot of traveling and singing. I used to do a lot of music, writing songs. And of course, I've written for Ron Winans and Vicky Winans and a few other people. But the thing about it is that when I got struck by lightning in 1981, and I'm an older man, so I'm dated myself. But when I got struck by lightning, I really went into ministry, not music, and that's when I started preaching. But I've always had a love for music, and I've never lost that. Even as I've evangelized the world and traveled all over the country, and even starting this church, I've always had a love for music. And I think that love that I have for music will always be there, because once you have been a musician and touched by the music bug, you never lose it. You may not display it all the time, but you never lose it. It's always there.
Now, when was the very first time you were introduced to music? When did you start playing and singing? At what age were you?
I was, believe it or not, I was 2 years old when I sang my first song.
Really?
Yeah, and I wrote my first song when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And I started performing, when I say performing, in ministry, going out and doing services and programs. I was 7 years old. My sister and I, she was 5 and I was 7. We'd go to programs and sing in harmony. And
at 2 years old, harmony?
Well, no, when we started going out, she was 5 and I was 7. But at 5 and 7, we were doing harmony, two-key harmony, and singing with greats like Mahalia Jackson and the Hawkins and Andre Crouch, and you know, so we were really doing a great job as children.
Now, is there a specific artist or somebody in that time that really inspired your music?
Yeah, Andre Crouch. People, I look at the young crowd sometimes, and I don't say this because I remember when I was young, but sometimes we don't pay attention to what was before us. But Andre Crouch is one of the most profound and most industry-changing artists. He was doing things literally that had never been done. His arrangements, his music, his writing, his boldness in his going into areas, crossing genders. I mean, excuse me, crossing racial lines and crossing cultures. He was in different cultures and different genres. He was amazing. And so Andre Crouch, probably, if I had to say one, most affected me with his music, probably more than anybody at that age.
I remember growing up, and it was, you better not play nothing else but Andre Crouch, the Winans, Commission, and John P. Key. That was it. You wasn't playing nothing else at the house.
That's because you're younger than me.
Every Sunday morning, you know.
But let me say this too. My first group was named Daryl Hines and the Disciples, because Andre's group was called Andre Crouch and the Disciples. So I was crazy about Andre Crouch. I really was.
That is amazing. Now, as far as your creative process, I call it a creative process.
Okay.
My brother, when he writes songs, he would always only write them in the shower. It's like
Okay.
the oil of the anointed was only in the shower. But what is your creative process? Are you normally typically on your piano, or are you? Does it come to you in preaching? How does it come to you?
99% of the songs that I do, they come to me in dreams. I'll be in a service, a choir will be singing, or a group will be singing, or I'll be singing, and I'll sing it long enough in my sleep or hear it long enough, and this is the process. I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. Oh, this song has never been sang before. Oh, this is an original. And then I wake up and I put it on tape or write it down and get the licks and the lyrics and then go back to sleep. 90% of what I write comes in dreams.
Wow.
That's amazing. And it'd be live, like I'm in service, and I'd be touched by it, and I was like, I've never heard this before. I was like, oh, this is my dream.
Wow.
This is my song. And I wake up and write it.
That's amazing, Bishop. Very, very, very amazing. Do you remember the first song that you wrote?
I remember the first song. I was 12 years old. I sat down at the piano in my mother's living room. It was a high-back piano. And the name of the song was "Cause I Love the Lord."
Cause I love the Lord.
That was the name of the song. I was 12 years old. Cause I love the Lord. That was my first song.
Cause I love the Lord.
Cause I love the Lord.
Do you ever go back and kind of reminisce and want to rewrite them and add to them?
Oh, that was such a sad song. I mean, it was. I was 12. You know, that's all I can say. It was not something I want to repeat.
Because I love. I'm sorry.
Just the title.
Cause
I love the Lord.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: on a typical day, now this is a personal question of mine. Who would you listen to driving, or who? I mean, because music has evolved greatly.
Yeah.
You know, from being very traditional. And I thank you, Kirk Franklin, for making that transition.
Well, you know, before it was Kirk, it was the Winans. The Winans was and then before the Winans, it was the Hawkins.
I'm a Kirk Franklin fan, though.
Yeah.
I'm a little new agey, but the Winans
right.
definitely.
But see, that was before your time too. You much younger than so I understand the Kirk Franklin statement.
I love Kirk.
Yeah, Kirk is great.
Yes. But on a typical day, who would you listen to?
Well, you know, this is interesting because even though I was raised in a Pentecostal home, I didn't listen to a lot of gospel. I listened to a lot of jazz. Listened to a whole lot of like what they call watercolor now, watercolor jazz. You know, a lot of modern jazz music, and I did that to broaden my ear to hear because I played by ear, and so I listened to more of that. And you know, I would listen to people like Stevie Wonders and the Gap Band, and I'm just telling the truth. You know, my mom and them didn't know it, but you know, I listened to Donny Hathaway. You know, I'd sneak in because their music and their vocals. Those guys, you know, Charlie Wilson, when he was in the Gap Band, was tremendous. Stevie Wonder was tremendous. And of course, Donny Hathaway. So I listened to them to help develop my singing ear. And I listened to jazz to help develop my music ear.
Gotcha. Now, lastly, if you always dropping jewels, even over the pulpit, I love your little inspirational things that you say. So if you would, because on the podcast, we play a lot of underground artists who are not really recognized, but the music is phenomenal. You know, if you can just drop a jewel for them and just kind of expound on giving them a little bit more inspiration, you know, saying, you know, about their dreams and things like that. Because I feel that sometimes our generation, because we have a new sound and we kind of have evolved, everything is just changing. So, you know, if you would just kind of encourage, you know, the youth that's coming up.
Wow. You know, I'm going to say this briefly, Bridget.
Okay.
But I'm going to say it so they can remember.
Okay.
as a musician, as an artist, you're going to have more discouraging times than you will have encouraging times. Discourage will come to you more than encouraged. But both of those words end in courage. You can't lose your courage, because courage is the ability that you have that will keep you moving forward. As long as you keep courage, go through with the discouraging times, celebrate the encouraging times, but never lose your courage, because therewith is your gold finder, courage. So keep your courage. That's what I did all these years. So hopefully that'll be enough to hear, that you can remember that. I can preach a message, but that's a jewel. Take that with you.
Thank you so much, Bishop, for your time. This was really great. We really appreciate having you on Speak Music Radio. Lastly, let me just have your opinion of how do you think, let me try to word this right. What is your opinion of how gospel music has evolved from traditional to the kind of new age sound?
I'll say it as quickly, and I think that with anything you have good and bad, and you got to be able to weed. I tell people when they listen to me speak, listen to me speak with a rake and a broom. Rake in what you can use and sweep out what you can't. Not everything that goes under the title of gospel music is really reflective of the gospel. And so the thing that you have to gauge what is appropriate for you when you listen is your relationship with Christ. Because that becomes the gauge. Because not everybody, I think gospel music is great, and I think it's doing a wonderful thing in its crossover ability. But you have to be able to gauge where you are in Christ by what you allow to come into your spirit through music. And so I'll say that very safely. Everything that's under the title of gospel music may not necessarily be what gospel music is intended to be as it relates to the gospel.
That's right.
But you have to be able to gauge what's best for your growth in Christ by what you listen to. And so let the Spirit of God lead you. Some things you'll like, some things you'll say, that does nothing for me. And so I think with that, you'll be able to find the right path to what's the best gospel music for you. I don't want to go any deeper than that because I'm in the industry now.
Well,